welcome to everybody, and thank you for coming. Thank you for taking a couple of days out of your week to spend with us. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces. I know we have people here from out of town that have joined us. I want to welcome you. I know there are a lot of local people, so if you're from out of town, welcome to our fine city. If you're local to Houston, then be sure to introduce yourself to people from out of town and let them know that the weather is always like this in Houston. It's always in the 60s. Don't worry about August. It's never hot. Well, I think we got a great day planned for everybody. We got great sessions. I hope that everybody got an opportunity to go to the training sessions that we had yesterday. I'm excited to talk to you. We're going to talk about things that we've done since we last met. We're going to talk about things that we're working on, and we're certainly going to talk about future things that we have coming. So because of that, I want to make sure that you guys are making any buying decisions. If you're making buying decisions, please make them about the then current features that are available in our product. So what has happened since we last met? A lot has happened. A lot has changed across the industry. A lot has changed in the global economies. A lot has changed in the local economy as well, in the US economy. We've also seen a lot of change and a lot of new technology taking place around new trends that we see. So I want to spend a little bit of time about that, and then our product as well has changed dramatically. But let's take a look at the oil and gas space. So the oil and gas space, since we last met, has gone through incredible recovery. When we last met around summertime, a couple months after we met, oil was about $42 a barrel, and now we see it up, flirting with $70 a barrel. Fantastic recovery. I'm so excited about what's taking place. We see demand lifting in a lot of the economies, and we see OPEC countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia, they are cutting their production. We see Venezuela production down by about 30% over the last 2 years, and so that's having a major impact on the price of oil. And this is a really good thing for us. It's a really good thing for our customers. Our customers have more activity, and anytime they have more activity, then our customers have more activity, and that's fantastic. And I think it's really exciting to see what's going to happen with margins, because over the years, our customers have taken the time and made the investment in things like FieldFX to do more with less and to become more efficient. And anytime we do that and improve our process, then our margins should lift. So I'm excited to see what will happen with our customers specifically, given what's taking place in the oil field. We also see the large project ramp time that's going to have to come back online in order to impact the supply. And so what I mean by that is that since we had this a couple of years ago, we had this sort of downturn, we had a lot of these huge projects slow down, and some of them went offline completely. And so in a situation like that, it's not that we can just turn those projects on overnight. It takes time to ramp those things back up. And so that is impacting the price of oil, and it's certainly baked into the numbers that we see today. You see it no more clearly in the US rig count. I follow this, I love this chart because it stacks year over year on top of each other. So this is the 17 rig count underneath the 18 rig count. And you see both of these trend lines trending nicely upward. And just last week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, 2 Fridays ago, the rig count finally broke 1,000, US rig count. That's really huge, that's fantastic. So I think all these things are driving great change and great recovery into our space, and will spell fantastic things for our customers. I'm super, super excited about what I'm seeing in the oil field right now, especially for our customers. There's also a lot of change that's taking place as far as technology trends. And so I keep a keen eye on these technology trends. I like to follow all these new hype technologies with Gartner tracks this thing called the hype technology chart. And you see what's taking place in things like blockchain and social machines, machine-to-machine learning and dark data. And all these things have a certain applicability in different industries. And I want to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve to see where they fit in our product and with our customers specifically. And so not all of them are a good fit. Not all of them are a good fit for the oil field, not all of them are a good fit for our product. And so I have to keep a nice fine filter so that we get the right thing in the product at the right time. And so things like blockchain, it's getting so much hype right now, and cryptocurrencies. I'm sure everybody bought Bitcoin at the right time and made 100x on their money. If you did, then you give me the hint next time, because my timing was terrible. But things like blockchain, great for an immutable database transaction history of what's going on. Maybe makes sense in the oil field eventually, maybe for things like title transfer. But right now, I don't see a super great area for that. But where I do see a lot of interesting things taking place are in the area of big data, IoT, and machine learning. So coupling those things together, I think you come up with a really, really fascinating solution for the oil field, a whole bunch of them, actually. But I'm going to only focus on one. I really only have time to focus on one. And plus, I think it makes a lot of sense because we've already started some of the work in this area for us to take advantage of these technologies. So I put all these together into a set of slides that walk you through what it might look like, and I've layered in FieldFX where it makes sense. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of a pressure pumping company. So one of our customers of ours that are out there doing frac jobs. And so if you've got a frac job you've got to go do, then you have frac iron, you have sand equipment, you have pump trucks, you have all kinds of heavy, complicated equipment that you need to use in performance of the job. But not only do you have to have all that stuff, you've got to keep it maintained. And it has to be certified, and it has to be inspected, and it has to be up to date so that it can be as safe as possible. And so if we look at what some of our customers and some of the pressure pumping companies are already doing, they've already got sensors on this equipment. And those sensors are collecting data, a tremendous amount of data, and sometimes very high frequency intervals where we might be collecting flow rates and volumes and run times every couple of seconds. Well, that generates a tremendous amount of data that goes into that data van. And I'm not talking about thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of records over multiple frac jobs, over multiple days, weeks, years. I'm talking about billions of records, amounts of data that you wouldn't normally be able to easily store in traditional types of databases and data stores. Well, what I can do with big data IoT is I can move that data into a big object. And I'm not sure why they didn't use a more creative nomenclature than big object, but that's what they did. So big object is out there. It's available today. You can use that in FieldFX Salesforce, take that data, and push it into a big object, right? So you have billions and billions of records. But then we go one step further, and we take all of our inspection recertification data. So we're measuring things like the inner diameter, the outer diameter. We're doing hydrostatic testing. We're doing ultrasonic testing. All these things are already being done in, let's say, the FieldFX EAM module, where we're collecting it on the mobile device. You could also be collecting it in back office. But you're moving that into the database as well, into the same database. And so we're using that data coupled up in order to determine things like preventative maintenance. So we need to run things like proactive maintenance, reactive maintenance. So we marry all that data up, feed that into the EAM module that's running work orders out of the preventative maintenance scheduler to do things like inspections and recertifications and a level 1 maintenance on the different frac pipe that we've got. But if you take it even a step further and layer in the machine learning side of things, then we can take what I introduced last year, FX AI Predictor, which we're rapidly working on right now, to take all of that data out of this big object and make predictions in order to launch preemptive work orders to hopefully determine when the next failure of a piece of equipment might be so that we can proactively go out there, preemptively go out there and do maintenance on it, or maybe even retire it from service, and thereby avoiding costly downtime or even sometimes safety issues, especially when it comes to frac iron. It can be a very dangerous situation if it fails. So that's a really exciting combination of technology from the new trending technology that you see out there. We're working heavily on this right now. We're heavy on the AI side as far as Predictor is concerned. We've already introduced it on the quoting side of things. We continue to make that better, moving it into some of our more componentized side of the house. So we're doing a lot in this space. That's where we're going to focus our efforts as far as the new trending technology. We'll really focus heavily on the machine learning, big data, and IoT. So speaking of where we're focused and what's been going on at Liquid Frameworks, a whole bunch of stuff has been going on. So Hopefully, those of you that have engaged our support group have had an opportunity to engage with our new engineering support team. It's totally revamped. I'm so excited about the feedback that I've been getting from our customers about our engineering support team. So if you get an opportunity to meet them here, they're all here today, so please stop by, say hi. They're doing a fantastic job, and it's just, I couldn't be more pleased with what they're doing there. So we're growing our teams as well. So it's important for everybody to realize that we are growing sales, marketing, services, support, but we're also growing the development team. So we're making some big investments and expansions in our resources so that we can deliver more of the things that you want faster. So I really want to invest in product evolution and speed to market this year. It's one of the #1 things that we're doing. And the reason is because our customers, you guys here in the room, provide such fantastic set of functionality and requirements and ideas that we want to push those through the product even faster. And so I thank you for those ideas, and they're absolutely the top priority for us. So we really don't get things from outside our customer base. Occasionally we'll come up with things and vet them with you, our customer, but predominantly, as you well know, everything comes from you, our customer. And I feel like that's the best way to prioritize the things that we put into the product, because it's you that know best what you need in order to do business in the most efficient way. And I really thank you for those ideas. And this is a great, great forum to bring those ideas to fruition. We have lots of channels, obviously, that you can submit ideas, but this is a great forum because there's so many of us here, and I personally love to hear about them from you guys. So speaking of the product, what have we been doing and what are we doing? What are we going to do with it in the future? So we've been doing a lot with it. I'm going to touch on a handful of things that I think are interesting right now. We've been doing a lot on the CPQ side of things. So we put even more P in CPQ, so more pricing in CPQ. We already have an incredibly complex, it can do a lot of complex things, but it's extremely comprehensive pricing engine, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that and show you some of the neat things you can do now. The synchronization engine, we continue to put lots and lots of time and resource in the synchronization engine. We are still working on making it even faster. We're still working on peer-to-peer sync. We're still working on auto sync. Those things will continue to come out throughout the remainder of the year. Some of them are taking a little bit longer than I originally anticipated, but it's because we want to make sure that we do it the right way and that we don't cause interruption in the business and that it gets out right the first time. So we're heavily, heavily focused on the sync engine, of course. Barcoding has been introduced. So we've got that in back office now. We also have a version of it in mobile. We're going to make the mobile piece a little bit more proliferated through the mobile application. Right now it's in one place. It's going to show up in another place here in the next few iterations, I would say. But on the back office side, barcoding is there. It's really fantastic. Works from a quoting perspective as well as a ticketing perspective also. So nice new feature. Push upgrades are fully rolled out as well. So push upgrades happen on the managed package side of things. We're doing that on a quarterly basis. We've had a nice lesson learned on the most recently done push upgrade that we did, and we'll be baking that into the process. It has to do with sort of timing of when we do things. So I'm excited that we have now the managed package. Everybody's on the same version, so we don't have these older versions of the package, which we have to support and develop against. So everybody's on one single version, and that's a very exciting thing. So let me go into the detail of the even more P in CPQ. So CPQ is a very robust module, and we have made it even more robust with this new enhancement that we've added. So in the context of a global enterprise class service provider that has multiple segments, the segments themselves don't necessarily matter. This is the context that I'll talk in for this feature, but keep in mind that this could be a large enterprise industrial service provider that's doing tank cleaning and heat exchanger cleaning and hydroblasting and all the things associated with industrial service providers. But I'm going to talk in the context of an oil and gas company. And it's also a company that does MSA-based work, so customer contract-based work, where you have the items explicitly priced for customers, in addition to call-out work. So it's a complex business, doing business all over the world. So here's how this new feature works. We've always had hierarchical price books. We've had that now for a little bit over a year. But in this case, I'm taking it a step further. I'm doing a little bit more with it. So if you look at this on the left, I've got the customer pricing hierarchy, and on the right, I have the corporate list pricing hierarchy. So our customer wants to price a service or price an item. And so in that case, the way that they need the system to work is they need it to first look at the customer's price books to see if the price might be explicitly priced for that customer. And so we start at that first magnifying glass in the Permian, and we see, is it priced in that Permian price book that's specific for Cirrus Oil? If it is, great, grab it and go with that price. But if it's not, walk up the hierarchy one step up and look at the corporate pricing for Cirrus. Cirrus Oil is the fictitious customer, by the way. So walk up the chain and look at that headquarter level price book to see if maybe it's priced there. If it's not priced there, then we hop over the hierarchy to the secondary hierarchy, which is the corporate list pricing hierarchy. So this is our own standard book price that we have. And we start at the bottom. So we start at the Permian pricing location for our list price, and we walk up the chain. This is a unique way that pricing is done that I find fairly unique in the oil field and in the industrial service provider space, emergency response space. But we handle this very nicely now, and it works great in back office. We're working on the mobile side of things, but I think this is a fantastic way to demonstrate very, very domain focused expertise in the two industries that we serve. So if you haven't had an opportunity to learn about this in detail, I've got a great pricing webinar out there. It's about a half hour long, and it goes into much more detail than I'm going into right here. But it talks about all the mechanics and how you can have pricing coefficients and discount schedules and all kinds of different things that can be picked up as you walk up these hierarchical chains. And it's doing it based on who the customer is, where the work's being done, what the service line is, what are the characteristics of the job. All that detail is in that webinar, and I would encourage you guys to take a look at it if you think this makes sense for your business. Barcode scanning. So as I mentioned, barcode scanning is out there. It's heavy on the back office side of things right now. I won't go into the details of this, but you can use it to scan not only consumable supplies, but also serialized equipment. So it'll do either or. It'll figure out the right pricing, drop it onto the ticket or the quote that you're building. So nice feature. Lastly, on features that we've focused on since we last met, FX invoicing is out there. It's live. Customers are using it. The feedback is good. This is part of our overall rental module that we have. And so we're working on other aspects of the rental module, but this is the sub-module, if you will, of rental that gives us the billing component, or it gives us the invoicing component. The nice thing about this is it gives us a way to carry all of the invoice coding data from way back in the item master through the price books, through the quotes, through the tickets, all the way into the invoice in one holistic, seamless system so that we can lock it all down and we can know that that data is immutable throughout the entire process, if that's the way that you need it to work in your particular configuration. So it gives us a way to carry that data forward all the way through the process. So what do we get with that? What's the nice benefit? You hear me talk a lot about the four-way match. This gives us a way to have an enforceable, visualizable, if that's a word, visualizable four-way match. So I can see it here on the screen where I've gone through and designated different colors for different thresholds. So it's configurable in the sense that the price book, the quote, the ticket, the invoice, all that pricing has to match. And in this case, I've said it's got to match equally. But you can do it based on thresholds too, because some of the contracts that we sign with our operators say that, hey, if you're within 2% of the MSA, then we're going to let that go through. We're going to approve that in the AP process. So all that's configurable. You can handle all those types of things. So this is really exciting to see the evolution and the maturation of this module. So a lot of things have been going on, but we're focused on looking forward. We're doing a lot of things in both the mobile side and the back office side. We're expanding the product team. We're doing a whole ton of stuff on the mobile side of things to make that process and experience for the end user even more easy for them, even more intuitive. And we'll continue to be focused heavily on that. But I want to show you some of the things that we're doing on next generation back office. So next generation back office is going to be powered by Salesforce Lightning. Salesforce Lightning is a completely reimagined user interface that is a componentized approach to the way that we deliver functionality. It's a totally different development process for us internally as well. So as I was saying, we're scaling up resources and bringing in more people that have this type of experience. And so we're also training our own internal existing resources on this. And this new paradigm, this new next generation back office, will give you the ability to configure up back office in ways that you historically have not been able to do. And so we like to think of them as Lego blocks. So if you wanted to pick up some functionality over here and move it to another spot, maybe you want to change it up a little bit and configure it to behave a little bit differently. These are things that you can do yourself as the administrator of the system and not necessarily have to worry about us making development changes to the product. So we're doing a lot in this space, but there's already a lot that has been done. So we have a number of customers that are already on next generation back office, the user interface, and then we're rolling out new customers on it as well. So in fact, all the new customers are on this. So let me show you a couple of the neat things that are already out there. The one that I think is really interesting is this Kanban support, Kanban board support. So the term Kanban, that term may not be something that you use in your everyday process, your everyday work lives, but it is something that is available and out there, and I bet it's something that you've probably used in your work process, but maybe didn't call it that. And so it's a way to move things from one stage to another. It's a way to matriculate data from one stage or one process to another. And so I've just got a little screenshot here that I thought I would highlight. And it's in the context of a quote. So I do quote because quotes naturally move from one stage to the other. You could think of it as pipeline management. So you're moving your quote through a pipeline, a sales pipeline, if you will, from maybe the proposal has been created and then you're negotiating the legal and then you're going to a stage of maybe closed won or closed lost. As you're moving it through this stage, you can pick up those tiles and move them, drag and drop them from one stage to the other. All the numbers update in real time and everything. So it's a really nice visual way to manage that data. And of course, as with everything in the system, it's totally configurable. You can change all the data fields and whatnot that are on the screen there. So it's a real nice way to manage a pipeline. If you're doing sales pipeline management, this is an awesome, awesome way to do that. And it works great with our existing quoting objects that we already have. So it's a componentized approach. This is just one example. It's an out-of-the-box example. Then we're taking it much, much further. And I want to show you how the product looks inside of this next-gen back office paradigm. And then I want to show you some of the new things that we're going to do with it. So I have FieldFX back office running inside of Lightning right here. You can see I've pulled in the schedule and dispatch module. I've pulled in some other things related to quotes and tickets. And each of these things that I've put a red box around, each one of these things is a component. And so those components can be moved around on the screen. You can change the settings. So if you're an administrator, you could put this into edit page mode and go click on these things and say, well, I want this to render like a table or this to be a grid or whatever. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to change the behavioral characteristics of the way this component, each of those components operates for your end user. You can also do some neat things like turning them on and off depending upon conditions. It's called component visibility. It's very nice. But that's not the only place that we're not stopping here. So the product runs inside of this new UI paradigm today, but we're going to go a lot further with it, and we're going to introduce new functionality with it. And so let me show you, give you an example of that. So this is a ticket inside of next generation back office. And you'll see that there are some components over here all on the periphery on the right that are already Lightning components that are right there on the right. But if you notice in the middle, we have what we call our ticket item builder, ticket item configurator is right there in the middle, and that's our existing component that we already have today. Most of you are familiar with working with that. But if you really investigate that, you could decompose that component. You could break it down into a lot of subcomponents, because not everybody wants barcoding, for instance. Maybe not everybody needs to filter the ticket right there, because maybe in your particular case, you only see 20 different tickets on average per ticket. In that case, you might not need to do filtering like a company that might have 200. And so if we break these different bits of functionality into smaller components, like filtering, barcoding, grid, and workflow, then I can move those into a suite of components. And I can also take the other bits of functionality, like the flyout picker, that gives me the price book items, the quoted items, the equipment, and the people that are on that job, that ticket's job, and I can move those to a set of components as well, or add those to the existing suite. And I can layer in all of our AI components that we're building. So I can layer in our recommendation engine for quote items. I can layer in the predictor stuff. I can layer in pricing recommendation as far as items are concerned as well. So all those things I can move into this suite of components that you as the administrator can pick from in an a la carte basis. So you go through cafeteria style as you're building up a page and say, well, I want to have a recommendation engine from the AI box, and I need a way to see the items on the grid, and I need another way to find them in a multi-price book quoting scenario. So I can drop all that stuff onto a page and just build it without doing any coding. And all of them will be highly configurable from the perspective of component settings. So you'll be able to change the behavior. So maybe in the grid, you don't want to see 10 columns, you only want to see 5 or 6. So those things are just point and click, drag and drop. No type of coding required. So a very powerful feature that we're working on. So these we're actively working on right now. We're building this library of components. We'll be releasing it in the managed package for you guys to be able to use. Of course, the sandbox and then production. So let me transition into an area where we are in the process of prototyping and discovering requirements. And so we're walking this around to different customers that are doing quoting to find out what the feedback is and to find out if we need to course correct where we're going. So this is called FX guided quoting. And what guided quoting is it's a totally new paradigm. It's a shift in the way that we build a quote. And I'm not saying that this is the only, if you go to this, it's the only way you build a quote, but it's one way that you can empower your user base, a certain segment of your user base maybe, to be able to generate a quote. And so as we see more and more people coming into the oil field, we see the great crew change that people have been talking about now for 10 years now, but it seems like that's an ongoing thing. I mean, we want to empower new people that are in the business with a tool that has the knowledge baked into it to be able to accurately generate quotes without having to go do a whole bunch of legwork to figure out what it is that needs to go into the quote. And so I've got a demo of this that I'm going to let run while I talk. And the way that it works is this. We start with a high-level set of objectives that we ask our end user, our field sales rep. Could be an in-house sales rep, obviously, as well. And those high-level objectives get us to a smaller set of questions that we ask our field sales rep. Those set of questions get us to a smaller set of recommended items that would be added to the quote. So in this example of a wireline quote that I'm building, I would ask questions related to the job, and then I would give the user, I'd give that field sales rep a list of services that really, they're packages, they're bundles, and they would pick from that small list. So instead of having to go through a price book that might be several thousand items long and do searching and trying to find the right item, we ask a series of questions and we get that list down to, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6 items. But they're not just items. These are packages, they're bundles, they're kits. And so when that person picks up that package, he's adding several sub-items as well. And those sub-items are really what make up the charges. And that's really what builds up all the pricing for the package. And so this is it's a major shift in the way that we do quoting. But what you'll notice if you look at the screen here, we would break these into components. And so if you look at this set of technical categories there on the left, where the system has figured out that, well, since your objectives are this, you need to pick a service from these 3 or 4 technical categories in order to satisfy the quote. Well, that would be a component. And then the list of quote items would also be a component that you would be able to arrange however you wanted to on the screen, maybe change the columns that come back, totally change the behavior of it. The core spirit of it would remain the same, but the behavior, the way the end user experienced it could be different for all of our customers. And we know that everybody, even though we're all in the same business and do similar services, everybody seems to do their process a little bit different, and we certainly want to honor this. So I'm excited about this. I think it's got a lot of great potential, but as with everything that we do that's really new, I want to make sure that what we are doing is what you want us to do. And so I'd love to get feedback from you guys here on this and see if it makes sense and course correct as needed. So speaking of feedback, you guys are our #1 source of features and requirements. Your customers seem to give us good information as well, so the operators. And so I have the unique opportunity throughout the course of a year to meet with operators and to meet with customers like you guys to hear about what business problems they're trying to solve. So what things are top of mind. And I take those business problems and try to formulate functionality and modules in our product to find ways to solve those business problems. And we have been hearing a lot about some things that the operators are asking for specifically. So over the last year, this has really gained a lot of attention and gained a lot of volume. I mean, historically, you've seen ERP, you've seen e-invoicing, and now you see this big focus from them on field operations management, field operations data. And so I want to share with you about 5 things that we keep hearing on a repeated basis from the operators. And I'm going to introduce something that we're going to do to solve this. And so the first thing that we hear heavily is really on the side of the business, water hauling business, fluids management business, where you see people dispatching water trucks out to pick up produced water, disposal, saltwater disposal. They're asking for geolocation of where these trucks are, and they're asking for availability and the ability to dispatch help or make dispatch requests related to those trucks. And so this is a recurring theme that we keep hearing. And second, we hear about invoice coding. So they're asking to help enrich the invoice coding data that gets back to their ERP system, their invoice. And so we're all familiar with the operator stamp, right? And today, the way that it works out in the field, a lot of times people still want to stamp with that paper, with that rubber stamp and on paper and write that invoice coding information. And we, of course, have a nice solution in ConnectFX where you can pull that paper stamp into the digital world, but they want to get it in there earlier in the chain. So not necessarily at the well site, but maybe even before that. Maybe enrich it when the job is initiated, when the work request starts. And then MSA pricing, contract compliance. So we hear from both sides of the fence, operator and service provider, that I want to make sure that our pricing is compliant with what we've negotiated with our customer. And of course, this has benefits for both. I mean, if we're undercharging or overcharging, we don't want any of that to happen. We want it to be accurate, exactly what's in the price book. And we, of course, have tools to do this. The operators are now coming in and saying, hey, we want to have a little bit more visibility into that. We want to have a little bit more reassurance that it's exactly with what we agreed to. And then finally, the last 2 things, I mean, these are sort of things that are undercurrents that I always hear about. The top 3 things are relatively new, I would say, but the bottom 2 are things that we always hear about. So we need to be able to do unmanned well site ticket approval, and then of course daily spend. I mean, daily spend, being able to know where I am in that AFE on a daily basis instead of weeks down the road whenever all the invoices come in. I mean, that's a big deal. So I want to solve this problem. I think it's a great problem. It opens up the operators and brings them into the mix, but I want to solve it. And the way that we're going to solve it is through something called FX Collaborate. So I'm introducing today this whole new paradigm, this new environment called FX Collaborate. The way that it's going to work is it will be a secure infrastructure and protocol that we will jointly define with energy companies. And it's going to be an environment that validated and verified energy companies participate in. And when I say energy companies, I'm talking about the entire spectrum, the operators as well as the oil field service providers and industrial service providers as well, because at the end of the day, they're really servicing the same customers as the oil field service providers on the upstream side. So it's validated and verified participants in this environment. And this environment is geared to improve the supply chain process. And so we want it to go smoother. We want the efficiencies that you see in other industries out there, maybe pharmaceutical and maybe telecommunications. We want those efficiencies to be in the oil and gas space as well. But what we don't want to do is inject more complexity, and we don't want to have people putting data on yet another server, and we don't want to have people having to track yet another username and password. So the way this will work from a technical perspective is we will set up this environment that will have federated login, that will use your own identity providers on your own existing corporate networks to log into. And so from there, you won't need to do, it's not even single sign-on. I mean, single sign-on is a subset of federated login, but it's not that we're going to be authenticating directly. It's that we will be authenticating with your own IDP. It'll be federated to this environment. We'll take buyers and suppliers, so operators and service providers, bring them into this environment, wire them up, meaning only certain service providers have agreed to do business with only certain operators that have also mutually agreed. So it's not that operator A can see all of service provider 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's that operator A can see service provider 2, 4, and 5, but operator B can see, let's say, service provider 3 and 4. And so with that type of security in place, we'll then be able to exchange data. And it won't necessarily be that we're replicating the storage of the data. More, it's an exchange of data. So I'll give you an example. In the geolocated resources, many of our customers have already invested in GPS tracking systems. And so we're not going to ask them to go buy our GPS tracking system or take an app that we write and put it on their phones or put it in their trucks. They may already have that data. And so we want to provide a secure infrastructure to transfer that data to the right operators that have been approved to see it. And that operator may choose to surface it in this environment that we have and see it on maps and be able to send requests to people that way, or they may bring it into their own. I mean, some of them have their own dispatch systems that they've already invested in. And so we don't want to dictate how they use it or where they use it. We want to basically empower and enable both sides of the transaction. Invoice coding fields is another great example where they might want to provide that data to this information exchange that you can pick up as you need to and enrich your tickets before the ticket even gets out to the field, so the operator, the company man, if you will, at the well site sees that coding data and says, I don't need to stamp this. It's right here. I can do the signature for proof of delivery, and I can do the geolocation stamp for proof of delivery. But as far as the operator stamp, maybe we can start to phase that out over time, as opposed to continually using that stamp. The MSA contract compliance, MSA pricing for contract compliance. My vision there is that don't replicate the data. Don't take those price books and stick them up on this other environment. There are some great ways that we can create checksums on the data that they want locked down and just validate the checksum back and forth between these organizations. It's a totally different way of thinking. So I'm interested in your feedback on this. I'm interested in operator feedback. We're soliciting that right now, but we're already starting some early stages of building designs and requirements for this. It's going to be a very exciting thing. I hope that it matures, but of course I want you guys to set the priority. So we've got an exciting day planned, a lot of great sessions. I know that there are some great things going on in the demo lounge. There's some great things going on in the success suites. I would encourage everybody to go visit those. And I'm also very, very excited to announce IgniteFX. IgniteFX is an online learning community that we are officially launching right here at ConnectFX. It's a way for you to get continuing education on FieldFX. Our product changes. It changes every 2 weeks, frankly, or it gets added to every 2 weeks. And so we have to have ways to continue to get people trained up on new things that are out there, and IgniteFX is going to be that online learning place. And thank you, Matt White, for all that you've done in getting that up and running. So thanks again. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I look forward to talking to you throughout the day. Have a great ConnectFX.